Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença and today we're going to talk about Learn C with Scratch, and in this case it's going to be Operators Part 2. If you want to get the solution to this problem and also an ebook on how to become a developer 2021, check the description below. So here the purpose of this problem is not focusing on Scratch but actually in C, okay? That's why here we have already the blocks. And now we're going to work with this. So this first case we have when green flag clicked, say 1 minus 2, and then we're going to use the absolute function of 1 minus 2, okay? So when we click here, 1 minus 2, it's going to give us minus 1, okay? And the absolute value is going to give us 1. So how can we do this in here? So first we have to include stdio.h, that is the standard library, and we're going to add another library that is the stdlib.h, where we can get this let me just zoom in a little, where we can get this absolute function, okay? So we have to initialize our int main void here, and we're going to say what? We're going to say int diff, we're going to create the first variable that is going to be int diff equals to 1, and we're going to do 1 minus 2, okay? And we're going to do int diff 2, and we're going to do absolute value of 1 minus 2, okay? And we're going to check the difference. So this absolute value is a function that we get here in the stdlib.h, okay? When we want to get the absolute value. So how can we print the values of a variable? We can use %i, that is the placeholder, and then we have to say what value this placeholder is holding. And in the first case, we're going to print the value of diff1 variable. And in the second case, we're going to say %i, and we're going to put here the difference value, the value of the second difference in here, okay? Let's do make p. Everything running okay. Now let's run our code. Actually, here we have a bug, right? Because it's all in the same line, but here I fixed it putting go to next line. Okay, let's save it and let's see again. So make p and ./p. So here we have -1 and 1 as we expected. Okay, so now let's do the second problem in here. So the first we're going to divide 3.5 by 2. Okay, then we're going to make the same division but using round, then floor, and then ceiling. So let's see the values. The first is going to give us 1.75, the second 2, the third 1, and the fourth is going to give us 2, okay? Basically the round you already know how to do this, okay? It's like a math we learned on school. The floor is going to round, but thinking on the floor number, so the lowest number that we can round, and the ceiling is going to be the highest number that we can round. So let's first include our stdio.h library, and also we have to include the math library, okay? So math.h library. Here we're going to start our function int main void, and the first case we're going to have a floating point number, right? So we're going to create a variable float, type float, and we're going to call div1, and it's going to be equal to 3.5 divided by 2, okay? Then the second one gave us an integer value, right? So in here we're going to use int div equal to div2, and in here we're going to do one thing that it's called casting, okay? So basically casting refers to changing a variable of one data type into another. The compiler will automatically change one type of data into another if it makes sense. For instance, if you assign an integer value to a floating point variable, the compiler will convert the int to a float. In our case, we're going to do a casting of a floating point number, and we're going to change it to an integer. So how can we do this? We're going to say int in the beginning with parentheses, and then we put the division, 3.5 divided by 2. The second one is going to give us another integer, okay? But in here we're going to use the floor function. Since a floor is a function for math, we can just use floor, 3.5 divided by 2. And the last will be div4, and also ceil, it's a function that we have on math, so 3.5 divided by 2, okay? And after all, we're going to printf the values. So the first data type, it's a float. So here we're going to use %f. Okay, that is the placeholder for variables that it's type float. So div1. And then we're going to printf the integers. So div2. And let me copy this because it's going to be the same. Because the other three cases are integers. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So make p clear and /p. So here we have, and as we can see, the floating, we have a lot of zeros after that. Okay, the integers doesn't have zeros. Okay, they are integers, not decimals, or aka floating points. So here is how can we use this. Okay, now let's go to the third problem actually, that it's getting the square root of number 25. Okay, so how can we do this? We're going to keep using the math library in here. Okay, so let's create a variable called num, and in this num we're going to use the skrt function, that it's the square root function 25. Okay, and here we're going to printf the value of the square root of 25. So here we have to use num. Okay, here's more exposive because I want you to learn more tools of C language. That's why I'm showing more than explaining. And in here it's going to give us 5 like we have in here on the terminal. Okay, and now let's go to our last problem, that it's a classic problem in programming. So it's very important that you know how to do this, and it basically uses all that we learned so far. So we're going to use loops, if and else conditions, and we're going to use also this thing of operators. Okay, so basically the idea here is to do one problem that is called FizzBuzz. So the FizzBuzz, it's basically what we're going to print. FizzBuzz if the number is divided by 3 or 5, that's why here we're using 15. Okay, we're going to print fizz if the number is divided by 3, is divisible by 3. We're going to print buzz if the number is divisible by 5, and else case if the number is not divisible by 3 and or 5, we're going to just print the number. Okay, so if we take a look in here, we're going to say 1, 2, fizz, 3, 4, buzz, 6, sorry, I was wrong. And so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to print the numbers this way: 12, 13, 14, FizzBuzz. Okay, and it's going to keep looping while we do the problem. So how can we do this problem in here? So basically we're going to create a variable, we're going to do a for loop. Okay, so do you remember how to do for loops? Let's do this in here. So for int counter, okay, equals to 1. Why 1? Because we're saying set counter to 1, so we're setting counter to 1. How many iterations we're going to do this? So we're going to do 100 repetitions. So here we're going to say counter less than or equals to 100, and in each repetition we're going to increment the value of counter. Okay, so here we're going to say counter plus plus. And what are we going to do inside? So we have to check these conditions. Okay, we're just going to follow this. So if counter module 15 it's equals to 0, so we're saying if the number is divisible by 3 and 5, we're going to print f what? FizzBuzz. Okay, and go to the next line. Oops, go to the next line. Else if, so else if counter, actually here we're going to use another, so else if counter module 3 equals 0, we're going to do what? We're going to print f fizz. Okay, just follow what is written on Scratch. Else if counter module 5 it's equals 0, we're going to print f buzz. Okay, and the else if is going to create a nested for loop, a nested chained if and else condition. So if this condition is satisfied, we're going to stop in here. And what is the else case? I forgot to put here. And in the else case, we're just going to print the counter variable, right? So we're going to printf the value of counter. So since we want to print the value of counter, we have to use the placeholder and here counter. And I forgot, oh, it's all good here. So let's see what happens. So make p and clear and dot / p. And here we have our numbers. Oh, I forgot to use here to go to the next line. So let's run this again. So make p, okay, and dot / p. So if we take a look in here, we have our, we're printing FizzBuzz from 1 up to 100, okay? So I hope you enjoyed this content and see you in the next video. Bye bye.